3 and 2 and 1. So yeah, the Merikins. The Merikins. Yeah, the Merikins. So this is what we're dealing with. The Merikins. The Merikins or Merikins were African American Dr. Hijack Marines of the War of 1812. Now this War of 1812 was kind of deep. I actually want to do some research on it because my neighborhood, um, there's a war battlegrounds in my neighborhood of this War of 1812, and it trips me out because all of the pictures, all of the guys, um, the pictures that they have up, all of these guys they don't look like this. They don't look like this. So, I knew it was something going on because I know about our real indigenous heritage in America. So I wanted to look into it and try to figure out how come they weren't showing melanated people on these pictures. So here we go. The War of 1812 was a conflict fought between the United States and its indigenous allies and the United Kingdom, its dependent colonies in North America, indigenous allies, and Spain. The conflict formally began when the United States declared war on June 18th, 1812, right? So it says between the United States and its indigenous allies. So the allies, so the indigenous, man, it's the indigenous people and the United Kingdom and its dependent colonies in North America. So yeah, we know what's going on, man. Pretty much, it is the United Kingdom fighting against the indigenous people in America, indigenous people in America. So I knew that something was funky about that. So, um, there's former African slaves who fought for the British against the United States in the Corps of Colonial Marines. Here they are. The Corps of Colonial Marines were two different British Marine units raised from former black slaves for service in the Americas at the behest of Alexander Cochrane. The units were created at two separate periods, 1808, 1810, during the Napoleonic Wars. I want to see what this is. Hold up. Wait a minute. So why do you want to let us see it? Say quick. Page review. So why is not going? Alright, so here we go again. The Corps of Colonial Marines. The Corps of Colonial Marines were two different British Marine units raised. Hold on, let me see this picture. I got a brother in front. Alright. Raised from former black slaves for service in the Americas at the behest of Alexander Cochrane. was a senior Royal Navy commander during the Napoleonic Wars. Well, we know he was a brother too, probably, right? The units were created at two separate periods, 1808, 1810, during the Napoleonic Wars, Napoleonic Wars, and then again during the War of 1812, both units being disbanded once the military threat had passed. Apart from being created in each case by Cochrane, they had no connection with each other. The first corps was a small unit that served in the Caribbean from 1808 to October the 12th, 1810, recruited from former slave to address the shortage of military manpower in the Caribbean. The locally recruited men were susceptible less susceptible to tropical illnesses than were troops sent from Britain. Troops sent from Britain. The corps followed the practice of the British Army's West India regiments. Mm, mm, mm. Okay, so what is this? So the West Indian regiments were infantry units of the British Army. Hmm. The British Army is the principal land warlord force of the United Kingdom, a part of the British Armed Forces along with the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force. Let's see, we got a towel here. I like this. I like this. I like this. I like this. I like this picture. I gotta save this. I like this picture. Alright, so where we at? Alright, I'm gonna start here. The West India Regiments, WIR, were infantry units of the British Army recruited from and normally stationed in the British colonies of the Caribbean between 1795 and 1927. In 1888, the two West Indian regiments then in the existence were reduced to a single unit of 2 battalions. The regiment differed from similar forces raised in other parts of the British Empire in that it formed an integral part of the regular British Army. I see that towel in there though. I see that lion in there. In 1958, a new regiment was created following the creation of the Federation of the West Indies. With the establishment of 3 battalions, however, the regiment's existence was short-lived and it was disbanded in 1962 when its personnel were used to establish other units in Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago. Throughout their history, the regiments were involved in a number of campaigns in the West Indies and Africa, and also took part in the First World War, where they served in the Middle East and East Africa. West Indies Regiment. West Indies Regiment. Original early basis of recruitment. So yeah, let me go back. So this is the Corps of Colonial Marines, a British colonial marine in a light-colored fatigue uniform, worn for performing ordinary duties and a common sight on Tangier Island. Look at this. Tangier is a town in Accomack County, Virginia, United States, in Tangier Island in the Chesapeake Bay. The population was 727 at the 2010 census. Since 1850, the island's landmass has been reduced by 67% under the mid-range sea level rise scenario. It's in the Chesapeake Bay. But on the battlefield, the red coat of the service uniform would have been worn. The red coat. So, the history of the Royal Marines began on October 28, 1664, with the formation of the Duke of York and Albany Maritime Regiment of Foot, soon becoming known as the Admiral's Regiment. During the War of the Spanish Succession, the most historic achievement of the Marines was, I don't want to go into all that right now, but I like this picture though. Alright, so where we at now? Okay, let's go ahead. Both units being disbanded. Oh no, hold on, we read it already. Military threat had passed. Apart from being created in each case by Cochrane, they made no connection with each other. The First Corps was a small unit that served in the Caribbean from 1808 to October 12, 1810, recruited from former slaves to address the shortage of military manpower in the Caribbean. The locally recruited men were less susceptible to tropical illnesses than were troops sent from Britain. Right. The Corps followed the practice of British Army West India regiments in recruiting former slaves as soldiers. I know I read this already, I'm just reading it again. In the previous year, the Mutiny Act of 1807 emancipated all slaves in the British Army, and as a result, subsequently enlisted slaves were considered free on enlistment. The second, more substantial corps served from May the 18th, 1814 until August the 20th, 1816. The greater part of the corps was stationed at St. Augustine on the Atlantic coast, with a smaller body occupying the future Negro Fort. Negro Fort was a short-lived fortification built by the British in 1814 during the War of 1812 in a remote part of what was at the time Spanish Florida, It was intended to support a never realized British attack on the United States, by means of which they call freed it. Okay. Hmm. On the Apalachicola River in remote northwest Florida, recruits were accepted from among escaped slaves who had already gained their freedom on becoming into British hands and who were unwilling to join West India's regiment. The establishment of the force sparked controversy at the time, as the arming of former slaves was psychological as well as military threat to the slave owning society of the United States. As a consequence, the two senior officers of the Corps in Florida, George Woodbine and Edward Nichols, Nichols was an Anglo-Irish officer in the Royal Marines known as Fighting Nichols. He had a distinguished military career. Is that true? Is this how he really look? Is he really? I don't know. We'll decide to look it up. Were demised by Americans such as Hezekiah Niles, was an American editor and publisher for the Baltimore-based National Weekly News magazine. Niles. Yeah, man, it's time back to the root. Something going on with my city, man. Nobody wants to admit it, but something heavy going on down here. You know what I mean? You look into things like they had a Baltimore in Ireland, and the sack of Baltimore. It was almost like the same thing happened. The same thing that happened in Ireland during the same time period happened here. I'm trying to eat, my man. Happened here also in the United States. So he was working in Baltimore, and his Baltimore publication, the Weekly Register, hmm, the Weekly Register was a national magazine published in the Baltimore, Maryland by Hezekiah Niles from 1811 to 1848. Okay. For the association with the Corps in introducing slave revolt. At the end of the war, 1812, the British post in Florida was evacuated. The Corps Florida detachment was paid off and disbanded. Although several men accompanied the British to Bermuda, Bermuda is a British overseas territory in the North Atlantic Ocean. It is about 1,035 kilometers, 643 miles southeast of Cape Hatteras in North Carolina, Nova Scotia. Alright. The majority continued to live in settlements around the fort. Around the fort the Corps had garrisoned. Had garrisoned. I wonder what garrison means. I might look it up. This legacy of a community of armed fugitive slaves with a substantial arsenal was unacceptable to the United States of America. After the fort was destroyed in the Battle of Negro Fort in 1816, the former Marines joined the southward migration of Seminoles. And African Americans escaping the American advance. Members of the Colonial Marine Battalion who were deployed under the Atlantic coast withdrew from American territory. They continued in British service as garrison in residence. Garrison in residence at Bermuda until 1816, when the unit was disbanded and the ex-Marines resettled in Trinidad. So yeah, man, that's what we dealing with. Boy, look at this picture, boy. Telling you right there, man. Telling you right there, man. Telling you right there what's going on. How they always whiten eyes and everything, man. Let me see where it's going at. Post-war developments. The Merikins. The Merikins. The Merikins. The Battle of North Point, a little-known battle from scarcely remembered war. So I think this is, let me look at this. The Battle of North Point. Hang on, let me see it. Oh, they bluffing. The Battle of North Point. So yeah. The Battle of North Point. Yeah, this is the one near my way. Yeah, this is the one in my neighborhood. The Battle of North Point. So we know that the soldiers didn't look like this. This was a bunch of brothers, man. They were all black men, man. See, here it is right here, look. The Battle of North Point. A little-known battle from a scarcely remembered war. Most people can make a pretty good guess when the War of 1812 started. Some know about the bombardment of Fort McHenry, which inspired Francis Scott Key to write the Star-Spangled Banner. And movie buffs no doubt recall Mustachioed Yul Brynner as the private chieftain Jean Lafitte coming to the rescue of silver-haired, heavy-browed Charleston Heston as Andrew Jackson in The Buccaneer, an account of the Battle of New Orleans. Not as well known, perhaps, is the pivotal role that Maryland and the Chesapeake Bay played in the war. And even less well known is the Battle of North Point, a fierce engagement on the outskirts of Baltimore that helped turn the Chesapeake campaign against the British. Yeah, we had guys sitting up. We had like pirates that was laid back in the cut, and every time a British ship would come in, we would sack it. We would get it and you know what I mean, take all of the goods off of it, kill everybody, and that's pretty much what won the war. These pirates that were laid back in the cut in Baltimore. That's how the Revolutionary War was won. But the Battle of North Point was a clash that pitted a disciplined yet untested military against battle-hardened British veterans. It saved Baltimore and helped boost the self-esteem of a young nation that had just seen its capital and many of its national buildings burned to the ground. Yeah, man. So we already know that these aren't the actual pictures. These guys are probably brown. I mean, Major General Smith was a. Let me pull this up, man, so you can see it a little bit better. So we already know that these ain't the actual pictures, man. I mean, these ain't. I mean, was an overall command of the American defense of Baltimore. General John Strickler commanded the American force at the Battle of North Point. Acclaimed American artist Remnant Peale painted both these portraits between 1718 and 1818. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. We already know. We already know y'all white eyes the pictures. We know that, man. Remembering our forgotten history. So let's read a little bit of this. And although military historians would count the battle a draw, it bloodied the nose of the troops who whipped Napoleon, dealing the blow to their morale that they never regained. A day after their advance on Baltimore was stemmed at North Point, the British tried unsuccessfully to bomb Fort McHenry until submission, inspiring Francis Scott Key to write. Yeah, that's when he wrote the Star Spangled Banner, when that was all going on. So yeah, remembering our forgotten history. The heroes of North Point were once celebrated in Maryland on Defenders Day. Visiting dignitaries made a point of visiting the battlefield, and presidents laud their feast in speeches. But other battles and other heroes eventually pushed North Point and the war itself into the background of the national consciousness. But with its bicentennial approaching, the story of the War of 1812 is reemerging. 2 years ago, Maryland purchased the 9 acres that represented the only undeveloped remnant of the September 14th, 1814 North Point battlefield for preservation under the program Open Space. Under the program Open Space. In June, Congress established the Star Spangled Banner National Historic Trail, marking the British campaign on the Chesapeake, including the Battle of North Point and the Battle of Baltimore that followed. Maryland is planned a statewide uh, commemoration of the war's bicentennial in 2012. Now, at least we have a chance to remember and learn from an important era in our nation's history, a point in time that helped shape us as a people, a state, and a country. So yeah, influential Americans had ulterior motives for war. Seizure of British Canadian, neutralization of Indian tribes resisting American expansion into Old Northwest and the possibility of seizing at least some of Spanish Florida. There was a strong anti-war movement, especially in New England, but in 1812 was an election year. Okay, so I just wanted to take a look at some of this real quick. What is this? Oh, it is this the net pirates. Oh, I think this is the part about pirates. The British described Baltimore as a nest for pirates. Yeah, a disparaging nickname the city earned by outfitting many privateers that preyed on British merchant vessels during the war. The British wanted revenge, but Baltimore was better prepared than Washington. They were led by General Samuel Smith, a veteran officer of the War of Independence, who had been anticipating an attack for more than a year. In the early hours of September 12, 1812, British forces landed on the tip of North Point and proceeded confidently up the peninsula. I was just thinking, like, 'cause the neighborhood I live in, like, it's a couple, water areas coming out the Chesapeake, and I was trying to figure out where this actually happened at. But, I'll get into that later, man. It's just serious stuff, man. When you walk around in your neighborhoods and you checking things out, man, you'd be surprised, man, the kind of stuff that is going on, especially in the United States, man. A lot of wars, a lot of families, man, breaking up behind people trying to come in and take our land, man. You know. But that's what this is about. It's about pirates pretty much sacking the ships that came. Look, check this out. The Battle of North Point. And I know what this is. This is right up the street from my house. But I just be tripping because, all of the pictures that they have of these soldiers in the Revolutionary War, they all are pale faces. This is called Back River Neck Road now. Back River Neck Road. I'm sorry. Back River. It's called Back River Neck. It's called Back River Neck. Yeah. But they have a Back River Neck Road, and they have this Back River also, right? To Baltimore, 7 miles. Yeah, this ain't too far from where I'm at now. Bear Creek is up the street. Yeah, I know what this is. I know exactly what this is. So yeah, man. Let me go back to where I was at. Let me go back to where I was at. So I'm gonna type something in real quick. Let me see if I can find something. Because a lot of stuff they've been bringing it out on the internet. Me personally, I don't believe that everything we see war, 1812. Wait a minute. Black Soldiers War 1812. Baltimore, Maryland. I bet you they ain't got no pictures of it. None. None. I got some family members that was into this war though. I didn't know already. I haven't seen the pictures, but I've seen their uh their names listed as far as being in this war. See, yeah, they don't show us no pictures because they don't want us to know about these melanated men that were here fighting in this war. And man, it's probably nothing. Might be lucky. Oh, no, we ain't getting pink. They covered that stuff big time, big time. I'm quite sure they got some pictures up there. You just gotta find them. Just gotta find these pictures. Yeah. Famous Merikins. We found one. I knew it. Black refugees, War 1812. Right? It says similar communities established in the Canadian provinces of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. Black refugees were blacks who escaped slavery in the United States during the War 1812 and settled in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Trinidad. The term is used in Canada for those who settled in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. They were from America. Dodge the hijack. Who were the Merikins? What is this? Fair use, fair use, fair use, fair use, fair use, fair use. Sorry, I'm doing this live, man. I'm kind of doing this in real time.
Good evening and welcome to the premiere of Merikins. I'm Alexander McLaren, Public Affairs Officer at the U.S. Embassy. Tonight, you will see the fruits of several months of hard work spent researching, documenting, and filming the journey of the Merikins from slavery in the United States to fighting for the British in the War of 1812 to new homes in Canada and finally to land of their own here in Trinidad.
When I was approached by my good friend, Ambassador Wilkinson Welters, to lend support to this worthwhile project, I did not hesitate to come on board. I was immediately fascinated by this incredible story that binds our four nations, Trinidad and Tobago, Canada, United States, and the United Kingdom, and I knew that it had to be told. It is my fervent wish that this documentary, so superbly put together by JCD and Associates, will be seen by as many Tongonians as possible, and especially by the youth of the nation. Again, it is an important and inspiring part of your and our collective history.
The struggle of the Americans show that the desire for freedom is found in the hearts of every man, woman, and child. That people, if given a chance, will sacrifice to gain their freedom. I'm very happy to know pages printed shared history and through this documentary the courage of those forgotten freedom fighters.
These remarkable people who took an extraordinary risk with the offer of freedom from the British forces, but with a very, very uncertain future. They left their conditions of slavery in the United States and served under the British flag, serving under an enemy flag effectively, risking everything for this idea of freedom.
I just want to say from my heart, and on behalf of the American community, a special thank you. We will go there and rejoice. We will share this all over the world, all over the Caribbean and at home, especially the villages where my people, they are all waiting to hear the great news and to see themselves, and share the story and feel good about themselves, and this is what we're waiting on.
And now, a feature presentation of the Merikins.
They're coming from the Caribbean, not Africa.
The fervent desire for freedom within the heart of man has revealed to us the very extent of our humanity and has brought us to the dark reaches of resolve and fortitude. The heart-wrenching stories of the Middle Passage represent for us a watershed moment in the history of our humanity. Yet the story did not end with, nor was it solely dominated by, atrocity. Within the dank shade of that human history, there have indeed been apertures of pure light.
I think of the Americans, my ancestors in a period of time, 35 to 4,000 people whose souls were on fire because of enslavement. And they needed a way to escape enslavement, the kind of chance that they took to just a sorry situation that they were in. And by entering a war, they didn't know whether they would survive or not.
Fleeing from the metallic whisper of chains, there was one overwhelming desire in the hearts of these men and women. They wanted to be free, and the British, who were at war with the Americans, welcomed them.
The British wanted to unstate. They were busy in France, all Europe. With the Napoleonic Wars, they were using a lot of their men this was an easy way to convince runaway African American slaves who were, of course, not very happy with the U.S. by the U.S. treatment of them and not giving them their freedom. So the British came in at the right time, saying they would promise them their freedom, and the slaves joined the ranks of the British.
If we look back to that early period of the 19th, found itself in conflict with the United States, as we all know. And as part of that conflict, a whole lot of slaves in the United States initially came as refugees to the British forces. There was an admiral whose name was Cochrane, and he saw opportunity there. And he was building on a lot of movements that were happening at that time. We were at the beginning of the period when people were thinking about the rights of slaves. The slave trade had been banned in the UK in 1807. There had been a slave revolt in Haiti, which had, if you like, revolutionized the way people thought about slavery and the rights of these people. So Cochrane on, if you like, a wave of changes going through the region, the Caribbean region. And he saw this opportunity, so he actually reached out to the slave population of the United States and said that they should come under the British flag and effectively serve in return for freedom, in return for their liberty.
The War of 1812 was one of the most intense wars fought in a former colony and their former colonial masters. Yet, amid the clamor and calamity of war, the enslaved Black Americans responded to the clarion call that echoed within them year after year. During the war, several of those enslaved along the east coast of the United States escaped the slavery.
What I call the slave escape, 1,000 Americans who quit their slavery during the War of 1812 was the largest emancipation between then and Navy at the turn of the century and the emancipation in 1860. A century for America and the Civil War.
Slavery was so harsh that they developed their own language so that the slave master could not detect what they were saying. And through their song and through their religious gatherings, the slave master never knew what they were saying. Traditions came over with the African Americans that settled here in Trinidad.
Not only were the Americans fighting to maintain the integrity of their status as an independent nation, but within that independence, the enslaved were able to take freedom as well, some of them for the very first time.
I often speak of a great Uncle Bootsoo, and I used to wonder, Auntie, where did that name come from? And she said, well, I don't know, it was my grandmother's brother. And so, all the questions that I would ask would be sparkling. On this particular voyage, I made this discovery. And it's quite amazing because it took me to the National Archives of Trinidad and on to the National Archives of London and the United States. I made some remarkable discoveries about the fact that my people were enslaved in Virginia and during the War of 1812, specifically on the day of April 18, 1814, they made their bid for freedom by running away, joining the British Royal Navy, becoming colonial Marines. So this is the letter from the overseer to the master describing the escape of my foreparents. Dear sir, this will inform you that on the 20th day of this month, just after sunrise, there appeared 4 barges heavy loaded with men. They appeared to be coming directly to the house where I live. I got all of my things out of the way of the British and all of the stock of every kind and directed all the Negroes to get up to the new settlement and from thence into the woods. When I returned to my family to France 1 hour, Kennedy, Ezekiel, and Tom Sanders had gone off to the British. British were a vessel loaded with flour that said us went off the Great Anchor within 400 yards of your new settlement. We took that vessel and Captain Cornell's vessel and went out in less than 2 hours. I believe the barges came up the same night and took a rappel out of Lock Creek. I am concerned. The British should
fought for independence. It wasn't given to them.
It does speak to faith and to human resilience and courage and the power of the struggle for freedom, I think.
The Corps of Colonial Marines distinguished itself very quickly, and they took part in some very significant military actions, including the famous burning of Washington, which resulted in the White House having to be painted white.
With the Treaty of Ghent signed on the 14th of December 1814, the war came to an end. Neither Britain nor the United States had lost any territories, but the Native American Indians had lost just about everything, and the Corps of Colonial Marines, so annoyed during the war on the seas, needed somewhere to rest their battle-worn feet.
His memories are called Sail Out and By, which seems to refer to the time that they spent on these ships during the war. And the lines are sail out and by.
It wasn't given to them. My son died.
It does speak to faith and to human resilience and courage and the power of the struggle for freedom, I think.
The Corps of Colonial Marines distinguished itself very quickly, and they took part in some very significant military actions, including the famous burning of Washington, which resulted in the White House having to be painted.
Neither Britain nor the United States had Native American Indians had lost just about everything. The
Native American Indians. The Native American Indians. This is who he's talking about. Not talking about the fake, creamy face, stringy head. He talking about this Indian.
Colonial Marines, so annoyed during the war on the seas, needed somewhere to rest their battle-worn feet.
Needed someone to rest their feet. The Native American Indians. Pay attention.
Sail out and by, which seems to refer to the time that they spent during the war. And the lines are sail out and by, sail out and by, captain say sail out and by, sail out and by, diver say sail out and by,
Native
sail out and by, thirsty say sail out and by, sail out and by. So you have the diver, the captain, the nurse. You have these people who are very much a part of their lives as they were on the ships.
Native American Indians.
Was over. Time to search the rise for a new home, to say goodbye to America once and for all.
Since they could not go back home, I think if they had gone back, the USA they would have been hanged in every street. But it had and for this Western government, they would leave that
Native American Indians wanted to go back home.
And the war of 1850, members of the Corps of Colonial Marines were sent to Bermuda, where there was a major naval dockyard. While there, they were offered various opportunities to engage once more in military service. But the heart's desire was clear. Having witnessed turbulence and dust-blown lives of slavery and war, these Marines and their families lived their liberty, want to live as free men and women.
There's no doubt that the spirit of independence that people have commented on in, let's say, the last 100 years, independence and awkwardness was there from the beginning. And they were, the colonial Marines even threatened to go on strike when they were stationed in Bermuda because they didn't like the work they were being asked to do unless they were given some extra pay for it.
About 4,000 of the Corps of Colonial Marines who took up the offer from the British to settle in British territories after the war. Almost 2,000 went to Canada, settling primarily in Quebec, Ontario, and Nova Scotia.
Of those 2,000 that went to Canada, about 100 took advantage of a subsequent offer to relocate. So in 1821, the British authorities offered to resettle anyone who wanted to in Trinidad and Tobago. And so we found that of the original 2,000 that went to Canada, about 95 came to Trinidad at the time and joined the original Americans who had come right after the war.
Once more, a sea change found its way into the face of these now free people.
I still can't believe that they actually said the Native American Indians. They trying to tell the truth, but we won't listen, man. We so socially engineered to believe that we came from Africa. We don't want to believe that we are the Native American Indians that they're talking about.
They were to once again brave the ocean, this time destined for the shores of Trinidad.
When news came to the Trinidad planters of the impending arrival of the colonial marines, there was quite a bit of opposition. They didn't want ex-slaves exciting their slaves into unrest. And so in the end, Governor Woodward placed them in the south in an area of virgin forest that was on the edge of the existing cultivated area. And that's the time show that the area was just plain blank.
I want to imagine so many years ago, 1816, 1820, when the companies landed in Trinidad. At that point in time, they were really very forested, very isolated. Today, if you go to Nuba, you go to the southern part of the country, you see the forests, you get a sense of how isolated the area is even today. So throw your mind back to the early 19th century and get a clear sense of how difficult it would have been for these pioneers. And yet they survived.
The Americans came in 1815, 16, started slavery. Trinidad had just become British in 1997, and these people came 15, 18 years afterwards. In the height of slavery, yet you were empowering black people to be these settlers projects, yet you were empowering black people who have already gotten freedom in America. They had fought for it. Their was their payment, and here it is that you were giving each family 16 acres of land to do something for themselves. Never mind it was virgin and uncharted territory. I think it's important. I think it's special.
The Corps of Colonial Marines, responding to the final call of the Muster of Freedom, found themselves on the south coast of Trinidad. Trained military men assaulted the calm of the abounding vegetation on land that was awaiting occupancy. Yet echo of the past remained.
Trinidad was a very recent acquisition as a British colony. It was not well populated. It was not one of the more established colonies in the West Indies. So that meant that it really suited the British governor at the time to bring in new populations, particularly the population of really very hard-working, enterprising, determined people who'd be able to live as freemen, as a kind of yeomanry of small-scale farmers.
Little company matches. Came to Trinidad, as he said, with the and planted, and the villages were set up. Who was the captain of the charge in the entire of the village?
They were craftsmen, they knew how to do anything. But they had skill, they had a skill that they needed African tradition from the motherland of Africa.
The rest of the area, he said, these people, what people have transformed this section of Trinidad, they have transformed it and made it the progress
continued to show a diligence that astounded those who witnessed it, pursuing the new destiny with fierce determination, became distinctly known as the Merikins.
What I really found fascinating in my trip to Trinidad was the discovery that the names of these villages, companies that these people serve, are still a part of the environment. There were 6 companies. My family happened to be part of the 4th company. But to walk into a community where 200 years later you see the lines of the first company, second, third, fourth, is an amazing revolution.
No physical development of community villages, a significant part of the lives of the Americans. Their spirituality, which had carried their hearts through slavery and war, continued to be at the very center of their lives.
Dreams and visions were significant for parents because this is what they believed in and this is what they lived by, especially when they dream came to pass. More so the old ones of this family, they perpetuated to the next generations.
The Baptist faith, which was practiced by several of the enslaved southern states of America at the time, had carried these men and women through the dismay and dread of slavery and refused behind.
Spiritual, and as you look in the U.S. as well as U.S. Caribbean, African descendants are very religious and very spiritual. And I think it's because it was a way of release from the harshness of slavery and the work that they did. And I say it's a glue that held their sanity together, their religion and their spirituality.
At this period of our lives, the Americans, our fathers, have left us this rich legacy of faith in Jesus Christ, faith in our God, and we are able to build an team.
The house of great foundation for the lives spiritually. And therefore the generations coming no doubt would inherit this. And because of this, nobody transcend all boundaries.
You had a group of people who would do anything to gain their freedom and went through incredible ordeals in a very remote island far away from their home, which was the southern United States, and that forged a community and kept hold of their pride and sense of identity and a special kind of Christianity right up to the present day.
They're far away from their homes, which is in the southern United States. Listen, listen.
And yet forged a community and hold of their pride and a sense of identity and a special kind of Christianity right up to the present day.
No free men and women who dictate their world in communities, spaces of hope and healing. One man, Samuel Elliott, descended from persons who rejected slavery outright and triumphed over it before the disbelieving eyes of the world.
So I think we can see the Americans as not only pioneers within Trinidad, but pioneers of actually the concept of abolitionism and freedom from slavery.
Same way, for example, that every European schoolboy, every Greek schoolboy, or every Russian schoolboy could use Greece as part of his or her intellectual curriculum and use their contribution to civilization as part of their whole historical and cultural development. To my mind, the parallel is the same that can be drawn from the story of the Merikins.
Many great stories of triumph of the human spirit have been drowned by the broken bridges between generations. But none of these stories is beyond resuscitation or revival.
It's an inspiring story, and I think it's a story that deserves to be told, deserves to be known not just here in Trinidad and Tobago, but also in the other three countries of whose history it forms a part.
There is a strong bond between U.S. and Trinidad beyond the strong governmental bilateral relationships that we have. It's a people bond, and I just believe that this story will enrich the bond even more. And to me, it has come full circle. I see the connection, and I want to tell the story to youth especially.
A lot of young people now, a lot of students have come, even people my age, don't know about the American history as such.
Nothing in the school books about the free blacks coming here, nothing much in the school books about the 1812 war, and therefore it was just something that, you know, like the forgotten war, you know. So this is the time, I think the time is now where we can really revive the people and bring this to life, and I'm proud to be part of that circle.
As a child, I always heard the word American.
You began to identify names. You know then that Jacksons, Morgans, Loonies, the Westerns, you know they were all part of the clan.
African tradition lends itself to the oral tradition. You tell stories and you pass it up from one generation to the next. But in today's society, people don't talk enough.
The other part that I find really very moving is the idea that how this story was able to survive through the generations of oral history. Keeping in mind that the Americans were not allowed to learn to read or write. So this story could not really be told except among themselves and passed down through the generations.
It's all about bringing this alive. It's all about looking at some of the practices that kept them alive and how we can reintroduce it in our society today. I think it's a really, really good part to follow.
The descendants are very accomplished people in different regions of the States, Canada, and England. They've gone into various professions. And when you think of where they came from, starting out as slaves, I mean, that's an incredible story, and one we can all draw inspiration from, I believe.
I think the residents there have inherited this spirit of independence, self-reliance, awareness themselves. Okay. I mean, it's that fact that all these bands still there, able to, I think it's something special.
You are able to identify historically, culturally with your ancestors. It gives you a great ground, it gives you a great sense of identity, it gives you a sense of consciousness. And this is the big community has.
Years ago, a number of our ancestors did research. And the research into the production of a number of documents. My father, Alfred Boyce Huggins, wrote the book Son of the Companies. And it is in that literature that I got a clear sense of what it was all about.
The history of slavery is undoubtedly it's one of the worst crimes perpetrated by one group of people on another group of people. But equally, I think what history shows us is that all of us will have difficult questions to answer.
I think documentaries like The American being an outstanding example are so important in conveying this
be American. I know that my foreparents fought for our freedom and some died, and I'm very proud. Not all, because we started some ancestors. Give us a legacy, a tradition, us dedication, hard work, sacrifice.
The levels of hard work, dedication, one to keep work hard. That there's absolutely no doubt about it. All the various company villages coming together with a whole to organize very commendable project.
I'm really very proud to be a citizen. And the feeling is when I meet who walk to me and say, I'm a Jackson, I'm Collins, I'm American, because it means so much. It's a sense of identity, and a sense of community.
I am a huge Cherokee, and I am proud descendant of American people. Great descendant of the community, I am one of the granddaughters of the clan in the Elliots. Prince Elliot was my great-great-grandfather. We've been waiting for this moment, where we can really empower the people, educate them about the great history of free blacks in Trinidad, from whence we came and the way forward.
The story would go on. It's not about the yes, the time to London, like with everything else, but it would go back.
And so I think that Americans, 200 years later, when their story is really just emerging, that the harrowing period of time, the 2 years that they were involved in this war, certainly they deserve to be honored in their quest for freedom and and
What we learn from Americans is actually that there's a, if you like, a constant need to be free. People will take amazing steps, great actions in order to do that.
By viewing this video, more people will be inspired by this powerful story of what transpired in the 1800s from the U.S., the migration of African American slaves to Trinidad. These are the types of stories that come alive and make you interested in learning about people and cultures.
Amid the undergrowth of hidden histories, the wilderness of the forgotten, there are clearings within me. Untold stories being built word by word. The story of the Americans cleared the way and finally found itself perfectly in the light. Sweet blow, sweet chariot.
Hey, type this in too. Okay, so this is the Merikins. Here we go again. Merikins. You heard me. The Merikins. Oh, what is this? Later, oil was discovered, and then some descendants were able to lease their lands for mineral rights. Hmm. Mineral rights are property rights to exploit an area for the minerals it harbors. Mineral rights can be separate from property ownership. Mineral rights can refer to sedimentary minerals that do not move below the Earth's surface or fluid minerals such as oil or natural gas. So yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. This is what we talking about. The Maddie can. Peace.